So I have been telling you about this tree, and it's a walnut, and I know that a lot of people don't think I should cut down a walnut. And if I do cut down a walnut, I should sell the walnut. Well, I've checked into selling a walnut. It's not worth it. I mean, first of all, you'd have to have a trailer so you can move it around, and because nobody's going to come out and get it. Even if they want to buy it, they're not going to come out and get it, so you got to move it. It wasn't supposed to rain today. I'm getting rained on. I might have to take this inside. Dang. So I realize walnut is a very nice tree, and you can do a lot of things with the wood, and I get it. But walnut burns well too. Oh, you shouldn't burn walnut. Well, to me, firewood is more valuable than cash. It really is. I know that's a hard concept to wrap your mind around. But when you got a tree sitting out here in the middle of the yard that's kind of dangerous to us, the firewood is more than useful. The nice thing about walnut is it doesn't burn as hot as oak. So I can use walnut in the fall or springtime. And it dries really quickly. So your moisture level is supposed to be down below 20%. This would be below 20%. If I cut it down right now, well, I don't know. Maybe by this winter, it would, or this fall, it would be ready to use. But definitely by next spring, you know, early spring when I need it, it would definitely be ready then. It only takes about 6 months to a year to dry out. Now the problem with drying out wood that you cut down when leaves are on it is the tree is full of moisture trying to supply water to the leaves. It's always better to wait until after the leaves fall to cut it down. Now, another thing that's good to do is if you do decide to cut it down in this when leaves are on it, is to let the leaves die. So you drop the tree, let the leaves die, because it draws all that moisture out of the wood. Well, I can't do that either because I'm going to trim the branches off first. But anyway, I'm going to cut this down. It's dangerous. It's going to get into the power lines. It's going to cost me more money in the long run if I have to replace those power lines. And I cannot believe it. It is going to rain on me. We've had so much rain. Yeah, it's incredible. So I guess I got to move everything. So I had this big plan to get a pole saw. Now everybody tells me to buy a pole saw. I need a 16 foot, at least 16 feet pole saw in order to cut those limbs out of that tree. Just got another message. They got an electric one for 14 inches. I measured it. 14 inches isn't enough. So, need 16 feet. Well, the only 16 foot one that I can find is on Amazon, and it had one review on it that says did not work, whatever that means. So I didn't want to buy that one. That was $150. And then there was one at the hardware store for $680. Well, I can get the tree cut down for $750. So do I really need an expensive chainsaw to cut one tree down? Granted, I could probably use it for other things, but I don't know if it would ever be worth $680. So I've been trying to find other things to do. So one of the things I decided I was going to do was fix up the chainsaw that I got out there. It needed fixing anyways. Change out the carburetor, change the stator. We'll get it up and running. And I was going to hook a 20-foot piece of 2x4 onto the chainsaw. I was going to rig up an eye bolt so I can have a throttle with a rope. I was going to make a lever type thing with another rope where I could pull it up with the rope. I was going to sit on top of the camper, reach across, and cut those limbs down. And I still think I can make that work. So I made a video about it, and I knew the comment section would have its opinions. And I even said, don't comment, because I'm not interested in opinion. I'm going to do it one way or another, whether I do it on YouTube or I do it on off YouTube. I'm going to do it. Well, one of my friends, Facebook friends, he's been friend forever, sent me a link, said, hey, have you considered this? And I had considered it. but not to the extent that he did. So there is this device that you can buy that is basically a chainsaw chain. But instead of being in a loop, it's just one long chain. So they cut off a link, so it's just one long chain. And they put two little handles on each end. You wrap the chain around the limb, and then you go into a sawing action, up and down, you know, both hands up and down. And it cuts the limb. Well, I had thought about that. But the ones I'd seen, you had to stand right underneath the limb. I really didn't think about it much beyond that. Just what I saw on YouTube. So I was still pretty excited about my pole saw that I was going to make. Now I told you that I had these 20 foot pieces of 2x4 that I got from some old crates when we put the roofing material on the house. Crates came in these big crates made out of 2x4s. So they were expensive. I would say those crates were every bit of 60, 80 bucks. And you only got like 4 2x4s out of it, maybe 6 2x4s. I mean, they were expensive. So I was going to have them returned, but in order to return them, I would have had to pay for the cost for them to come and get it. Well, now the price of these 2x4s is about 11 bucks each for 20 foot. So maybe a little bit more reasonable. I just Googled it. But regardless, that's 11 bucks that I could save. Or if I look at the price that I bought them at, they're probably about 20 bucks. So I didn't really want to use the 2x4. I'm sure I could find other projects that I would need it more for, but I was going to use it anyways. Well, then Keith, like I said, sent me this, and I immediately dismissed it because I had already thought of it. I was like, I don't want to do that. And besides that, Carolyn didn't want me up underneath the limbs, which is why we decided that I was going to sit on top of the camper, whether I have a pole saw or whether I have a saw that I make, I was going to sit on top of the camper. And I promised Keith, though, that I would show Carolyn this product just so she could also weigh in on it. And before I even got done typing, she said, "What's that?" It was up on the computer screen. So I explained it to her. Well, at this point, there's videos on it and everything, and I'm thinking, wait a minute, this is not what I've seen on YouTube. This thing was pretty extravagant. And so what it has is two 25-foot ropes. So you hook the 25-foot rope on each end. Remember, this is one long piece. So you have 25 on this side, 25 on this side. Had handles and all kinds of stuff. And I thought, well, I can make one of those. So we were talking about it, and I know I had an old chainsaw chain somewhere. And Carolyn said, no, we threw that away when we cleaned up the truck camper, you know, this last winter. We took bags of metal and different things, paid $7 per bag. It's not too terribly expensive to have our trash taken out a couple times a year. So, well, darn. Well, I still have new chains. I got a 14-inch and an 18-inch. So I Googled that. And to get a good Oregon, this is in Oregon. Oh yeah, it is Oregon. It says right there, Oregon. Yeah, S62 was $18. It was like $17.99 or $17, depending on where you went, $17.99, $17.92 to get an Oregon chainsaw. Now you can get off brands from Walmart and different things, but I go with Oregon. It's their, I don't know. I've always seen them ever since I was a kid. I know them. Hardware store carries them, so that's what I buy. I guess they're a good aftermarket chainsaw. Then I would have to buy the rope, and the rope would probably be another 50 bucks. So this thing that my friend sent me was $29. So with tax it was $31. And Carolyn said, you know what? I am not even going to let you make a decision on this. Buy it. So I bought it. And since I bought it, I've been trying to figure out a way I could have done it cheaper, and there's just no way. Carolyn was going to let me do this. She knows that I'm not interested in hurting myself making the pole saw, but she was not excited about it. Boy, it's still raining. I can't be out here. I don't have my water thing, my waterproof box on camera. So she wasn't too excited about it. As soon as she saw this, she said, let's get it. Now, the other thing is when she says buy something, it's not my tool, it's hers. It's always been that way. She'll buy a tool and use it one time, and I'll use it the entire time until it dies. It's her tool. So she wants to maybe trim up some of the branches that she can reach around here. She's always wanted to trim this one up. I've thought about doing it, I just never got around to it. And then when I do get around to it, she's like, nah, you know, whatever. So now she can just decide. In the fall time, she can cut it down if she wants. There's other things she wants to cut around here. So, and you can use these things to just cut small trees. You know, if she didn't want that, she could cut that down. So the nice thing about, I wish I could come out here, but I'll try to do it without getting too wet. It's not raining hard. So if I stand right here and I move the camera straight up, you can see the branches. But if I stand right here, if the branches fall down, they're going to completely miss me. So you might be able to see how far we are from the tree. I don't suspect that's 25 feet. I mean, it could be, but the other thing is you can come over here and get closer to it. I can still get on top of the camper. There's a lot of things I can do. Now, one of the complaints in the comments or the review section of the tool is the saw gets jammed up in there. And you got to be careful that well, they don't even say you got to be careful. They just say it doesn't work because it gets jammed up and they have to go up in the tree anyways and cut the limb down, which is probably the most dangerous thing you could ever do. I had an uncle, and he was up in a tree and cutting limbs and fell out of the tree, broke his neck, died. I was really young. He had 4 children when he died. He was a preacher. So I've always said, don't get in trees. And if you watch YouTube channel videos, you'll, after a while, you realize, don't get up in trees. It's just not safe. Unless you got the climbing gear and all that and you're a professional. So I can stand back and cut this. Well, the other thing is if those limbs get jammed up, I have wedges. They're little plastic wedges. I don't even think they're plastic, but they're some sort of material where it doesn't dull your blade. All the professional chainsaw guys use them. And so what you do is if it gets jammed up, you take that wedge, you put it into the area that you've already cut, you slam it in there with a hammer, and it opens up the gap enough that you're no longer jammed up. So I'll use that as well. The other thing is if you watch other reviews or read other reviews, there's a lot of YouTube videos in that, or at least videos in that Amazon thing also. They say, don't move from the position that you started in, which makes sense. If you start way up here and you're sawing, you have one angle going into the tree, but if you come down, your angle is going to increase. And so now you're cutting into, it would jam up quite easy. Same thing would happen with your chainsaw if you did that. If you tried to change the angle, it doesn't work. So stand in one spot, and if it gets caught, just yank it to the non-sharp side, yank it to the side. But it comes with a sharpener and ropes and attachments and all kinds of things, so it's quite inexpensive. So that's what I'm going to do. I ordered it almost minutes after my YouTube friend or Facebook friend said to buy it. It'll be here in a few days and we'll give it a try. But I still would like to try the chainsaw thing, but I don't have to. There's no reason, after analyzing everything, the cost, you know, if I dropped the chainsaw from that height, it would break. So I would have to end up replacing the chainsaw. So it just makes more sense this way. Even though I'd like to challenge myself. But it's still an inexpensive way to get limbs cut easily. So if you click the up next box, it'll take you to a video where I was showing you how, or at least discussing how I was going to hook that chainsaw up to a 2x4. So if I can inspire you to reconsider when you're living your dreams. Thanks for watching.